partners, the Tech Hive team has made this possible. It's taken a lot of hard work for us to get here. And right now, I'm going to be introducing our panelists for this fireside chat. And they are really interesting people who are key players in the ecosystem. So first is Mr. Emonotimi Agama. Mr. Emonotimi Agama is a chartered management accountant, economist, investment analyst, and a risk manager. He's also a chartered stockbroker and currently is the managing director at the Nigerian Capital Market Institute, NCMI, a subsidiary of the Securities and Exchange Commission. He was previously the head of registration, exchanges, and market infrastructure and innovation department. And he is currently and also a former special assistant to the Executive Commissioner, Operations, and head public offerings at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Mr. Timi is a secondee to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission in 2018. He is a ranking member of the Rules Committee and a member of the SEC Committee on the adoption of IFRS in Nigeria and the arrowhead for the introduction of derivatives in the Nigerian capital market. Prior to joining the SEC, he was at various times with the University of Benin and Office of the Accountant of the Federation of Nigeria. Currently, he is a fellow of the IFC Milken Institute Capital Markets Program. Mr. Agama, Dr. Agama, currently serves as the regional executive member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountant, CIMA UK, and chairman, board of trustee for Purity Rose Orphanage. Our next panelist is Adetola Adeleye Fasoro. She's a legal practitioner with extensive experience spanning various aspects of legal practice, with a very strong bias of financial services, commercial transaction, capital market operation, regulatory compliance, and corporate governance. Adetola currently leads the legal compliance and company secretarial team at First Ally, made up of 5 subsidiaries: First Ally Capital Limited, First Ally Asset Management Limited, First Ally Properties Limited, First Ally Bureau de Change Limited, and First Ally Investment Securities and Securities Limited. Adetola is a member of the Corporate Counsel Committee of the Section on Business Law of the NBA and Nigerian Bar Association, and I can imagine how it is for her to leave the ongoing SBA conference to be here with us. We are most grateful to have you, Adetola. And our third panelist, it's someone I love speaking with over the phone. Whenever we speak, I have this excitement because there's this joy that bubbles when he speaks. When you hear him, you perhaps understand this excitement I also share. He is A.B. Wanapere. He's head of platform operations at Bamboo, at his Invest Bamboo. And in his capacity, he oversees the smooth running of Bamboo's financial settlement and regulatory engagement in all the markets Bamboo operates. Prior to joining Bamboo, he was a team lead, payment, settlement, and reconciliation at one of the biggest merchant banks in Nigeria, FSDH Merchant Bank. While there, he drove the bank's process digitization initiatives with outstanding results. He also worked with Access Bank from 2013 to 2017, where he worked with the bank's treasury operations team and subsequently with the bank's quality assurance team. Mr. Ebi, Adetola, and Dr. Agama, thank you for joining us. I am resisting the urge to start calling Adetola my senior colleague, even though we're not in the court. Dr. Agama is set to join us. He is currently caught up in an engagement, but he will join us as soon as he's done. So we're going to get the ball rolling and kicking. And I will start with Adetola. And my first question for you is this. How do you think foreign digital asset offering platform under the new SEC rules governing digital assets can navigate the compliance requirements under the rules of SEC? How do you see that playing out in the Nigerian capital market? If you are speaking, you are currently muted, Adetola. If you could unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me now, Anthony?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me this morning, and thank you to Tech Hive Advisory and Legal for putting this together. It's nice to be here. So we jump right into the question you have, just to set the tone for our conversation today. Now, with respect to the foreign digital assets offering platforms, we're happy that finally one of our key regulators in this market, the Securities and Exchange Commission, have come up with rules and regulations to guide our space. And the way I would like to put this is to put them inside different buckets. Now, for foreign DAOPs that are looking to operate in Nigeria and in Nigerian capital market space, of course, we have rules and regulations in place now. But as of today, well, maybe it would have been good for Dr. Agama to be on board at this point. I know that the SEC is here to commence registration as they are still looking to roll out to the market specific circulars and guidelines that will really assist with respect to the practicalities as it relates to the registration. However, looking at the rules that were exposed to the market a few months ago, I would like to put it in the buckets of the applicant company itself, things that needs to be done. Of course, if we go through the rules, they are similar to what traditional operators are familiar with. And when I say traditional operators, that's where you have your fund managers, your corporate investment advisors, your trustees, broker dealers, and the likes of the, maybe like the registrar as well. So looking at it from the applicant point of view, of course, you have to be registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission as a company. And after that is done, of course, you have your relevant documentation, the profile of the organization itself, putting that in place. So for a foreign entity that is looking to register and comply under the rules, while we still wait for the specific rules and regulation that the SEC will roll out to the markets, it's just to go through the rules and again, try and comply with, start putting all the documentation together as it relates to the specific function you're applying to. So like I said, the CAC bit, the corporate documents, of course, your certificate of incorporation will be required, the memorandum and articles of association will be required, the CAC form, well, the CAC has now jettisoned that. We now have what is called status report, of course, that shows your statement of share capital, return of allotments, and of course, your particular of directors. Before, we used to have CAC 2, CAC 7, CAC 3, but now we have just one single document that shows all of that, which is your status report. Of course, you will need the related audited account. That's if your company is existing, and if it's new, the statement of affairs will actually do for that purpose. You need things around tax identification. Again, it's not cast in stone. The commission, in its discretion, may just decide that they need more information from you. Now, that is for the corporate document as related to the applicant company. Of course, for minimum paid capital, I know there's been noise around that because it's quite a lot. You need to show the evidence of the required minimum paid block capital, which is about 500 million. And of course, you need to have fidelity bond. And for your fidelity bond, you actually need 25% of the minimum paid capital to show to the SEC that you have. Then you have different forms to fill. And for the applicant company, there's a form called SEC Form 3, which you need to fill. Then for your sponsored individuals, that you need to have in place about 3 of them now, your directors and your principal officers, including your compliance officer. There's a SEC Form 2 and 2D that needs to be filled. All these are available on the SEC website. Of course, it might be good to probably engage someone that could help you in this process because it's not just filling the form. The SEC is actually very particular about how the forms are completed, so you don't have gaps in your series, especially for your sponsored individual. Maybe the one for your directors can be waived, but for the sponsored individuals as principal officers that will be responsible for the day-to-day activities, you need to be more detailed around that. And around payments, you just have about 4 buckets of payment. The first is the filing application fee. There's also the processing fee. There's the registration fee, which is a lot, it's 30 million naira. I think that's the highest we have in the space now. Even for fund managers, it's not up to 30 million, it's currently 10 million naira. And of course, sponsored individual fee, that one is now 100,000 per person. Before December 2021, when the new rules were introduced, it used to be 50,000, but now it is 100,000. There's been a change in the fees and an upward revision in the fees by the Securities and Exchange Commission just to reflect, again, the state of our economy and prices of things generally. So in wrapping up with this question, I would say, put it in this bucket of the corporate entity itself that is trying to register, have an entity registered in Nigeria itself, then comply with all the rules and regulations as the SEC has actually put out. But again, we are still waiting for the registration department of the SEC to give us specific guidelines as to how to proceed with this registration in the market. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you for providing that quick overview for foreign digital asset offering platform. I'm going to do a quick follow-up on that in view that there is SEC rules are yet to be consulted on that. And if they want to register now in Nigeria, they have to follow almost the same process for Nigerian entities. In your experience, what do you think are the common roadblocks startups face in sourcing funds from the capital market? Keeping in mind that we're looking at both Nigerian homegrown startups and foreign startups that want to tap into the Nigerian capital market.
Okay, thank you, Anthony, for that follow-up question. Okay, so with respect to startups that are looking to maybe fundraise in the Nigerian capital market, I know there's been this apathy and concern, especially around the capital market itself, where people are concerned about is capital markets for the young markets, which is where you have the startup. So the typical roadblocks you'll be seeing will be things around regulatory uncertainty, because there may be different maybe models that stocks are looking at, and they are not sure whether our two favorite regulators, the CBN and perhaps the SEC will just clamp down, wake up one day and just clamp down. I know that regulatory uncertainty is very key, is a major concern for people, because we are bubbling with ideas, especially startups coming up with creative ideas to financing. So that regulatory uncertainty is there. And the second one, again, in Nigeria, would be maybe what I would call, again, governance uncertainty. As we approach the general election, people are trying to look at what is governance uncertainty can be to break uncertainty. It will be again that will come up that may impact what model you have in place and all that. So going specifically into maybe equity raise or equity capital, also debt capital. Now for equity capital, there will be concerns around maybe dilution and someone buying you out and the likes of that. And of course, for debt, there will be concerns around the cost itself, how to even access it if you are going, for example, maybe if you are going to the financial institution, the traditional financial institutions as we have them. So those, I would say, they are maybe the current challenges or roadblocks that I think startups face if they are trying to access from the capital market.
Thank you so much for providing an insight on that. And just for our audience, just so you know, we had a session on how to navigate around roadblock in accessing funds for startup in Nigeria sometime last year. We are going to share a link in the chat session for you to go and have a look for more detailed explanation, in addition to what Aditola just said. Thank you so much. Now, Abi, I'm going to jump to you. Going from my last question to Aditola and looking at what Bamboo is doing in Nigeria, what is your expectation so far? Or let me rephrase the question. What has been your experience in using technology and investment in Nigerian capital market system?
Yeah, thank you, Anthony, for the question. Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here. Thanks to TechHive and Amulegal for offering me the opportunity to be on this panel today. Right, to talk about what our expectations are and what has been happening in the ecosystem, right? Just to put it plainly, I know it's common for people to expect that when startups want to talk about regulatory frameworks and the whole regulatory space, right? It's expected that startups will be looking to bash the regulators and stuff like that. But to be honest, our experience with the regulators has been very sweet and solid. The regulatory space has been somewhat welcoming to young minds and to young people like us to come in and have series of conversations and basically to kind of deepen the space, kinda, right? It's been very welcoming, I must say. SEC as a regulator has always kept their doors open to us, to young players in the space. They've always been willing to listen to players like us in the space. They've always been willing to guide us, right? Yeah, sometimes once in a while there might be some strokes of the cane, right? Yeah, but it does happen. It's basically to straighten everybody on the right path. And again, we must take into cognizance that the responsibility and the job of the regulators is to safeguard customers' investments, to ensure that customers are investing in platforms that are not just regulated, but that would ensure that they deliver on what they've promised to deliver, right? So my experience, right, or Bamboo's experience in playing in this space has been mixed, right? But has been largely encouraging, because if you look at how much we've been able to grow and how much we've been able to sustainably grow our numbers and investments and all of that, right? You would know that these are not things that can be achieved if you do not have regulatory backing, if you are not able to meet in a space with your regulators, just like we're about to do, right? Mr. Agama is a director in SEC. I work in Bamboo. If SEC has not given us a very solid playground, an opportunity to work, we would not be able to sit in one panel and have conversations, right? Yeah, so it's been, I must say that due to the frameworks and the policies that SEC have put in place, I must say that the investment space is one that a lot of fintechs have a bit more clarity than so many other spaces, so many other financial spaces that is available for young people to want to build or to build on, more or less, right? Because of the kind of policies and because of the open door policy that basically the SEC has basically granted to everybody. So yeah, that's my response.
Oh, thank you very much. So I'm going to do a follow-up question similar to this one, and it's, how do you balance regulatory compliance requirements with your customer expectations? How has BAM been able to do that?
Yeah, so to be honest, the first thing that for you to be able to do that, the first thing you need to do is to first of all understand what your regulatory requirements are, right? Because again, once the regulatory requirements are set by any of the regulators, the onus is now on you as a player in that space to more or less stick to the regulations that have been set, adhere to them, and follow them to the letter. If these regulations have been set, that is not the time for you to want to change the regulation. It is the time for you to adhere to the regulation. Then if it is not something that is very palatable to you or to your business, while you are adhering to the regulation, you are also speaking to SEC behind the scene, or you're speaking to CBN behind the scene to basically try to get the regulation to where you think you would want it to be, right? So once the regulations have been set, the onus is on not just fintechs, but all the players in the space to adhere to the regulations, right? To be honest, something that SEC, when SEC comes up with certain policies and certain positions on things, right? What it does is that it builds confidence in the minds of even our customers, right? Because when they get to see that we are working very hard to not just to adhere, but to comply with all SEC regulations to the letter, it gives the users certain level of confidence. It shows that we are willing and we are very open to play to play in the Nigerian space in a compliant manner, which is what users want to see, right? Over time, there've been lots of players in the space that do not adhere to SEC rules and regulations, and SEC have over time issued communications against such players and stuff like that, right? And these regulations, and we've come to see that even some of the ones that SEC did issue communications about, and people still did not yield, did not akin to what they were saying. We've seen that some of those businesses have even gone under and gone with customers' funds, right? So for us, regulation is not something we want to shy away from. Regulation is something that we welcome. Working with the regulators is like something that we appreciate, to be honest, because of the clarity and the boldness that it gives to you to act in a certain way, right? So when you talk about how do we balance our customers' expectations with regulatory requirements, I would say that because there is so much clarity, there is a lot of clarity in how SEC is putting things out there. What the minimum KYC, for example, right, is clear for everybody. What should be your minimum KYC? It's clear for all fintechs, all players in the space, right? This is what SEC has said must be the minimum KYC. So if you want to play in that space and you want to take in customers in that space, you already know what the minimum KYC should be. It is not hidden, right? Because of that level of clarity, you could 100% go out there, set your processes properly, and find a way to improve your user experience while still adhering to the rules, right, that SEC and other regulatory bodies have set.
Thank you so much, Ebi, for that wonderful response. And now I'm going to move back to Adetola, my learned senior colleague. I'm not saying Ebi is not learned, of course. I mean, it's not learned.
I know I'm not learned, but even...
So talking about the capital market, it's quite a broad sector. A lot of times, people just stop at SEC. There are other key players in the field, like the Nigerian Exchange Group. And that brings me to my next question, Adetola. How has the demutualization of Nigerian Stock Exchange, now the Nigerian Exchange Group, enhanced the quality of your interaction with this agency, bringing it in line as a player in the Nigerian capital market space?
All right, thank you, Anthony. Okay, so I'm going to start. To be honest, for the Nigerian Stock Exchange, now the NGX, I think they are one regulator that is actually very receptive in terms of interaction and also how they communicate with the operators in the market. So since the completion of that demutualization exercise last year, they have now transited into a non-operating holdco, and they now have three main subsidiaries. So you have the Nigerian Exchange Limited itself. And of course, that is where you have the licensed securities exchange. Just to mention that the NSE, as we knew it before, now NGX, is also regulated by the SEC, right? They are a licensed securities exchange, right? So in the market, they operate as a self-regulatory organization. So that non-operating holdco is now something we know as NGX itself. That's the exchange, the licensed securities exchange. Then you have the regulatory arm where you have the NGX Regulatory Limited. And an interesting one, which has nothing to do with finance or capital market at all, is the NGX Real Estate Limited, right? So following that demutualization exercise, the interaction with them, like I said before, was very good. And now I can say it's top notch. On a scale of 1 to 10, I can put it at 9. So I'll keep that one for we operators in the market. So it's very open. In terms of regulations and compliance, if you go on your NGX website, you can find all this information timely. There's the corporate disclosure portal where for even issuers and of course trading license holders, you can get information as to what is happening in the market, who is doing what. Of course, you can find information about the closing period of public companies, right, with respect to how you can deal with their shares. So that has been very good. They have different forums, different interactions with operators in the market, maybe the closing bell sessions where they bring on board CEOs from different companies that are listed on the NGX to shed more light on topical issues. So, and of course, the key rationale for this demutualization exercise is, of course, to open more channels for capital mobilization, right? And for this capital mobilization, I know that the management of the NGX, they're actually looking at how to bring the younger folks into that space as well. And they are looking to collaborate, to encourage through their trainings, through awareness, just to get young people there. So in terms of interaction with NGX, they are one, well, maybe because I would say it's kind of quasi-private sector driven. So that interaction has actually been very, very good. And I think they are very receptive in terms of innovations that you're bringing in and how to deepen and, of course, develop the capital markets.
Thank you so much. That's quite insightful. I mean, it's been a long time coming from NSE to NGX and what they are doing now. So I'm going to roll back to you, Ibi. Leonard Ibi. Leonard Ibi. So recently, not long ago, I mean, barely 2 months ago, SEC released the new rules on the issuance offering offering platforms and custody of digital assets. And this has to do a lot with what some of the things that Bamboo is doing in Nigeria and elsewhere. So how do you see these new SEC rules impacting on Bamboo's operations?
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. Yeah, you did say that the SEC rule is quite recent, and to be honest, internally we are still reviewing it to basically see not just how it would impact our business, but also how it would impact our customers' behavior, right? Because again, for us, what we are big on, it's not just the business parts of what we do, but also how our users, how whatever we do improve our interaction with our users and how our users interact with the financial sector as a whole, right? Off the top of my head, I would say that what the circular does bring again is a lot of clarity, right? It brings a lot of clarity. It brings a lot of direction, right, to what every single player in the space is doing and what every single player in the space should be looking to do, and what you would need to do to basically be 100% compliant with SEC. I must say that the registration process or whatever you need to get from SEC, right? It's just like Tola said, there is need for a lot of guidance. There's need for a lot of guidance. There's need for for you to get somebody that knows what they are doing, basically, to get you across the line, right? But other than that, we've seen that the guidelines that SEC has brought up as it relates to digital currency and all of that, right, is something that it's a policy that we've been expecting for a while, and it's a policy that is going to affect the way individuals interact with not just platforms like Bamboo, but even with digital coins, cryptocurrencies, and all of that, right? So it's a welcomed development, and it's one that would begin to see its effect because it is relatively new, right? So we'll begin to see its effects in the whole space within a very, very short period of time. By the time platforms like ours begin to implement and also adhere with some of the things that was laid out in the policy document.
Thank you very much for that, and I hope Bamboo users on this platform are seeing how Bamboo is keeping on track. And I'm going to just jump back to you again before I move for the Tola. My next question is this: talking about regulations, because SEC is really pushing our regulation, trying to meet up with global trends to keep on track. What improvement would you like to see in terms of regulation affecting financial settlements, if there's any? What would you like SEC to pay attention to or address when making regulations?
That's an interesting question, right? Right. Well, to be honest, we 100% do feel like there is need for a lot more conversation before policies are put out there. We know that SEC is actually doing a lot to speak with a lot of players before they put out policies. But there is still the feeling that more needs to be done, right? Again, because technology is moving. Technology moves very, very fast. A conversation, if we have had this conversation, let's say 6 months ago, right, and we're having, and whatever we discussed 6 months ago, honestly, in technology is already stale, right? Things have moved. Cryptocurrency is down. Even the US stock market is not doing so great, right? So yeah, so technology moves very, very fast. Things move very, very fast in this space, and yeah, so there is need to always have conversations with the players in this space and get the players to buy into your policies before the policies are rolled out. Then the second thing that I would 100% like to say would be that there is obviously the zeal for SEC, right, and other regulators to be able to change policies that though when it was created, it was seen as something that the industry needed, right, and something that was very good and very nice to have as at that time. But when things have now moved beyond it and there are new realities, right, when there are new realities and new horizons or new technologies or even new things happening in different spaces that now affect this particular policy, those policies, there is obviously a need to address or change the policies quickly so that the industry can move along smoothly. Once those opportunities arise and once those kind of things are noted, then we would 100% expect and would like our regulators to maybe move a bit more faster to get these things clearer and to more or less adjust or to change these policies so that the industry can keep moving on fast, right? I know that, to be honest, not to fault SEC, I know that SEC is doing a lot. I know that their fintech units in SEC is actually like trying to set things up to get so that they would be abreast of things that are happening in the, not just in the tech industry, but in the whole financial space as a whole, so that they can move very fast, right? If Mr. Gama was here, he probably would have addressed how they are thinking about these things properly, right? But I also know as a player in this space that these are some of the things that they're already putting in place, right? But honestly, yesterday is already too late, to be honest, right? So yeah, so we want these things to be out there as soon as possible. We want greater collaboration. We want, in all honesty, I would say that we want to even have SEC to be more involved in our businesses, right? SEC should be more in the know of how our businesses operate, so that when Nigerians call on them to address certain things in this space, right, they address it from a point of knowledge, from a point of higher level of education, and they are able to provide the clarity that the whole market needs, which is something that I think they're already doing at the moment. And so basically those are the points that I would want to be addressed if that's it.
Thank you very much. And Adetola, I'm jumping back to you right now. I'm taking you back to a similar question I asked David, and that is, what are your thoughts on the implementation of SEC's new rules on digital assets, and how will this affect startups participating in the capital market? Bearing in mind the various aspects your industry is playing in.
Sorry, I lost you from me.
Pardon?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Please take that again, Anthony.
All right. I'll say, looking at how your own industry is operating in the Nigerian capital market space, okay, what are your thoughts on the implementation of the new SEC rules on digital assets.
I'm going to the office.
Welcome, Mr. Agama. Thanks for joining us. We have our third panelist with us. So how do you see the implementation of SEC's digital assets regulation, and how will this affect startups participating in the capital market? Over to you, Adetola.
All right, thank you very much. I will have said that the right person to answer this question is on board, but I'll speak for the operator's point of view now. What I like to say to begin is to say that the future is here, and it has actually arrived ahead of schedule. And like Hebi said, thanks to our regulators, they are beginning to see now and accept and accommodate that the future has now arrived ahead of schedule as it relates to digital asset regulation, right? And what they are basically putting in place. Because I know what the issue is for everybody, and of course the regulator is because of the distinctiveness around the currency. So that has contributed to the issues are associated with global regulation, not just in Nigeria, but of course across the globe. And now there's the global financial trends as we have it now. The shift in it is moving from traditional to digital. Again, just like we had people during COVID, we now have like an hybrid work environment and all that. So this space is not static at all. And our regulators just need to accept it. I know, yes, there are concerns around investor safety and all of that. So it should not be completely rejected, of course. Rather, we should have controls in place to minimize maybe the risk that we have, to mitigate this risk as well. So it's just to encourage that. Of course, I know the SEC has taken the lead on this, and I know the CBN, yes, there's this some concern as to whether it is acceptable or not. It's just to encourage that looking at this shifting global financial trends that we have in place, our regulatory authorities should take the lead, and kudos to the SEC for doing that in developing a very strong financial system and regulatory framework in place. Yes, where there are concerns around integrity of the markets, rather than completely rejecting all of this, we should have controls in place for them. And of course, startups will begin to align. And as Debbie also said, the FinTech team unit of the SEC is actually very receptive in terms of hearing from the operators, how would you like this to operate? And of course, not totally ban and say, no, you cannot do this, but to say, how can the investors and how can the teaming public that is looking to invest in this space, how are we sure that they are adequately protected? And so again, kudos to the SEC for taking the lead on this. We can only hope that as we progress, the CBN and other regulators that have to do with this will be on board, and our market will be better for it.
Thank you so much. And surprisingly, this person has been burning, and Mr. Agama is here. So Mr. Agama, I'm going to throw this question at you to get the ball rolling. So my question is, what are your thoughts on the enforceability of the new SEC rules on issuance, offering platforms, and custody of digital assets? I'm linking this to the question I had Adetola and Ebi. Over to you, Mr. Agama, and thanks for joining us. We are most grateful to have you with us. Mr. Agama, are you there? Okay. While we wait
need to unmute him.
Yes. Okay. Sagama, if you're speaking, you are muted. Okay, while Mr. Sagama is still trying to set up his audio, Ebi, I'm running back to you. Please don't shoot me. So in terms of technology, tech is the way forward. Everything is going tech, whether we want it or not. I mean, as you mentioned, if you have a conversation around tech today, in the next, did I just lose Deji? Okay, in the next 6 months, the conversation is changing. The game is not the same. So what technologies do you see shaping the future of investment over the next decade? But let me go over the next 5 years. What projections do you
have? To be honest, I see the industry going beyond measures. I mean the investment space. I think investments globally are at a slow pace at the moment, but we expect things to pick up at some point, right? I am bullish on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, to be honest. I strongly believe that the Nigerian Stock Exchange is a potential money spinner. It's a potential money spinner, to be honest, as we get to figure out how to bring investments from foreign and local players in very, very large volumes. The emphasis on foreign monies coming into the Nigerian Stock Exchange. I'm hoping that Bamboo, the company I work with, would be the company to figure this out and provide the service. Because I reckon that whoever figures out to bring like large volumes, large foreign currencies into the Nigeria Stock Exchange, right, would probably be the game changer. I know from experience of having been in the market globally and locally, I know some people would say, oh, the NSE does not, some people would think that the NSE is performing badly, but that is not true. The NSE is actually performing very, very strongly when compared to other countries' exchanges. And I from time to time, we ask ourselves internally, what is stopping foreign investments from coming into the Nigerian Stock Exchange in very, very massive volume. And that is one problem that as a company, we are very, very keen and very, very interested in solving, right, as a business. So that is something I think would be solved in the next 5 years. I 100% believe so. I also think that platforms will be built or are already being developed that would solve problems surrounding user education, right? Financial education is it's a massive problem in Nigeria, right? So this is a key aspect of the whole ecosystem development process. In truth, I doubt that there would be any change in the whole ecosystem if there is no corresponding development in the educational space, right? How young people want to be taught, how young people want financial literacy to be taught to them is quite different from what our schools are doing today and what so many of us are already doing. Lots of young people are on their phones, are on their computers, and we must take financial education to these channels, right? The onus is on every single player in the space, regardless of who you are, right, to basically take financial education seriously and educate Nigerians on finance, basically, right? So I reckon that there will be a big change in financial education. I think that there will be big players or even the existing players would up their games to take financial education to the next level. I also think that changes in the next few years will be led by young people that are maybe currently teenagers right now, but would be entering their mid-20s in the coming years. I think they would build what would suit them and how it would suit them, right? I don't think we've seen the technology that would be in vogue in the next 5 years. I don't think that we know what it would be today. I think that lots of young people with different experience would build what and how they want to interact with the financial space by themselves, and we would see it in the next 5 years, and it might be slightly different from what we are seeing today. Just like if we had said that maybe in the 1980s or 1990s that there will be a decentralized currency, I'm sure everybody would have said, no, that's not true. But yeah, we are, right? So I strongly believe that young people would more or less create their own future of finance by themselves, and we would get to see it happen. Then lastly, I also expect that investment opportunities would cascade down to rural villages with products that would be a great fit for them. Every day we talk about finance, we talk about investments, we talk about digital, we talk about technologies that would boost investment. We are always looking at how to serve people in the urban areas, on how to serve people who already have monies and means already. Not a lot of people is thinking about how to go to the villages, Again, if you say that you are in the investment to help people build wealth, then why are you just looking to help only the very rich to build wealth, right? There's also the conversation around what of people in the rural space, how do you help them build wealth, right? Even with mobile money coming on board, for example, how long before, for example, say MTN had some kind of investment product on their mobile money? That's a game changer on its own. It means that with your phone, with your mobile phone, just by interacting with MTN or Airtel or whoever, you might be able to get into, maybe even buy stocks from the Nigerian Stock Exchange by dialing a USSD code, or maybe get to buy some fixed return by just dialing the USSD code, right? That is a game changer on its own, because it then cascades. It then means that even where there is low internet penetration, investments, people would still be able to access investments in those places. I think this market that I just talked about, I think they are highly underserved, and I reckon that this will be solved in the next few years by some very smart players. Could be MTN, could be Bamboo, could be First Ally, could be anybody, to be honest. But I think that these problems will be solved very, very soon.
Thank you so much, Avery. Mr. Gama, thank you once again for joining us. I'm going to ask you the same question I just asked Avery before taking it back to my previous question. And the question is, what technology do you see shaping the future of investment over the next decade? Hello, Mr. Gama.
All right. Thank you for having me, and I'm so sorry for coming in late. I was actually engaged in another meeting. But just to quickly make a point, I heard Mr. AB speaking, and of course, I share the same zeal and optimism with him. The question is, do you really know what the technology that will shape the future will look like? No, certainly nobody does. Nobody does, because as we speak, there are a lot of innovations and revolutions happening. And indeed, even in the securities market space, you certainly do not know where we'll be going to, because of the revolution of ideas that are, popping out from every aspect of the world with regards to how investment is done, how safely investment can be done, and what ways we can create new investment classes, because that is fundamental. One of the major challenges from the industry has always been the issue of the investment classes that are available. And, how does it meet the various stakeholders or the various age groups with regards to their appetite for investment? So where do we go, or where are we going to? Is something that you cannot find even in a crystal ball. But the truth is, there is so much ahead. And of course, with revolution, new ideas, and new developments, I strongly believe that we are yet to see the best. The best is still far away.
Thank you, Mr. Gama. That was quite insightful. I mean, really insightful. I think I'm really excited for the future already as it is. And my next question to you, Mr. Gama, is this. Recently, SEC has issued a new rule on issuance, offering platforms, and custody of digital assets. What are your thoughts on how this rule and regulation will be enforced in the Nigerian ecosystem?
Okay, well, first, my name is Dr. Agama. I ended, so address me properly. Anyway, but
my sincerest apologies,
yeah,
Dr. Agama.
Besides that, the regulations, as a regulator, there's one thing that we normally do. What we do is that we try to evaluate the environment and then introduce regulation to deal with it. That's often the case for regulators. There are very few times where the regulator comes to the regulation first before the products come. So what we intend to do, or what we have done, is to be able to provide that platform, that a background for everybody to be able to pop in and do what you need to do. So our regulations actually are taking into consideration the events that are happening and how do we respond to it. Regulation is actually a response to innovation, and innovation in the sense that it takes care of the interest of the investor. From the SEC angle, that's our primary role. That's our primary responsibility. That is our interest. How do we take care of the
Hello, Dr. Kama, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Okay, I think we just lost Dr. Gama, and while he's trying to reconnect. Dr. Gama, are you back with us?
investor? What are the risk markers in order that whoever comes in finally become the loser? Regulation is like if you do not put guards on roads. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, it's breaking. Oh, sorry.
Can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So clearly, what regulation is providing guides to the environment, to the rules, and to the people that are operating within that rule. That is what regulation is. So with the recent regulations issued by the SEC, it is primarily to provide rules and regulations in order that that market or that space can grow properly. And that is the intention of the regulator. Are we together?
Anthony, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. So I don't know if you got my last point. I'm actually mobile. That's why the lines are breaking up. But, just as a summary, regulation is available to help innovation. That is the essence of our regulation, to help innovation and also protect the investor.
Thank you so much for that wonderful insight. Most respectfully, I have another question to follow up with that. As it is, the Nigerian capital market represents 25% of Nigeria's GDP, compared to Kenya's 70%, Brazil's 5%, and South Africa's 348%. As such, the capital market is not a strong barometer of economic health or activity in Nigeria. How can this gap be bridged?
Can you come again if the question was addressed to me?
Yes, it was addressed to Dr. Gama. I said the Nigerian capital market only represents 25% of the Nigeria's GDP. When you compare with Kenya 70%, Brazil 65%, and South Africa 348%. And as such, the capital market is not a strong barometer of economic health or activity in Nigeria. So how do you recommend that this gap between what Nigeria is earning from the capital market, how do you recommend it be bridged?
Well, we are already on it. If you look at it, what has happened is that prior to these times, a lot of Nigerians do not even appreciate what the capital market is, neither do they appreciate what investment is. So what is happening is that the major and most important or effectual way of handling this is through enlightenment and education. So you cannot give what you do not have. Once there is an understanding of exactly the pros and cons of the market, everybody will jump in. Yeah. So the clear way to bridging the gap is that enlightenment. So you speak to South Africa, you speak to Kenya, you speak to the emerging, the developed, advanced economies, all that has happened with those economies and why there is the development, and that the kind of gap we have in Nigeria does not exist there, is because of knowledge. And the only way you can build knowledge is through education and enlightenment. So, but what is even more interesting is that with the new craze with regards to some other asset classes, right? A lot of young ones are beginning to appreciate and understand that there is something called investment. Yes, for now, people are more, tuned to the virtual currencies, but by and large, because they are not getting into the space, the tendency is that with just that, they will start beginning to look at other products within that space in order for them to explore the opportunities and the benefits of those other asset classes. So I believe strongly that over time, not in the very near future, this story will change. The narrative will change. More people will begin to come into the market. More importantly, also, as young persons begin to set up companies, the major thrust of any company is finance. And where do you have a long-term fund other than the capital market or through private equity and venture capital? So because of that, that will also begin to change their direction towards the capital market. And of course, that gap that you have seen, that gap that we've always spoken about, will begin to get closed up in those instances.
Thank you very much, Dr. Agama, for coming through with that response. And as we're gradually winding down this session, I have a question for you. And that question is, what opportunities are available in the Nigerian capital market? And how can they be leveraged while managing legal risks?
Okay, thank you, Anthony. And good morning, Dr. Agama. Good to hear from you, sir. I need to greet my regulator. Yeah. Okay, so with respect to the opportunities available to startups and other operators in the Nigerian capital market space, right? I would like to put it in, let me say, two buckets. So the first would be equity finance, and the second one would be your debt finance. Now, for equity finance, of course, that is cash as you have it. For startups, and quite a number of them, and Ebi can also mention, they are already looking at that opportunity. There's the venture capital opportunity for equity financing. It's something that can be explored. And basically what that does is for early phases of your company's development. So you can look at that. You have quite a number of corporations that evaluate startups. Basically, they evaluate to be sure that you have innovative and scalable business concepts, and based on that, they can now say, okay, we are willing to invest into this. So you have VCs that are looking to invest in startups. So under equity finance, of course, the first will be for venture capital. Then, of course, you have the angel investors, and this is where you have high net worth individuals. Apart from bringing their capital, giving you equity, of course, they also come with experience, and typically the experience in this space, they've worked in maybe in pharmaceuticals, maybe in agriculture, or any other industry that your organization play in. So you have angel investors investing in these business startups as well. So that is something that should also be considered. And of course, you have these crowdfunding platforms, and as you're aware, the SEC also regulate this space, and that's something that startups that are looking to raise funds through this space to consider and ensure that they are adequately covered in terms of regulation and compliance, which is very, very important. So this is just you going to the general public, and of course, you go into the general public and you are getting bit and bit from all participants in the markets just to raise. And according to the SEC standard, of course, the maximum amount can be raised for medium firms, what can be raised for small enterprises, and of course for micro enterprises respectively. So it's to look at that. Then there's the debt aspect of it as well. And for debt, it can go to your traditional or financial institution, and it can also be mixed. It can be mezzanine, where you have, of course, mixed loan and equity. Now, in terms of how to mitigate the risk, again, it depends on the risk appetite of an organization. And as an organization, as a startup, you are not too small to have like a risk management department where you assess your risk, you determine your risk appetite and how much you want to expose yourself to this risk. And of course, you put in place mitigants to ensure that you are not unduly exposed. So which brings me to how to manage this legal risk. You have to take your due diligence, very important. Ensure that due diligence, of course, on counterparties that you are dealing with, and of course, on people you're bringing on board, that is put in place. And of course, the documentation is also very key. And this is a good advice for startups. It's not just enough, I know quite a number of people do this, to go on Google and just download one agreement that has to do with an entity in California or Hong Kong, and you just say, oh, I have a shareholders agreement. Engage local counsel, right? They'll be able to look into your agreement, into your structure, what you're trying to do, and advise you and tailor your agreement to the exact transaction you have in place. Not just go on Google and download something, partnership agreements that is backed by Kenyan law, whereas your business is cited in Ikeja, Lagos, Nigeria, right? And you've just gone ahead to download something that does not relate to what you're doing. So legal documentation is very key. Risk assessment is also very key. Again, this will fall back to your risk appetite as an organization. And of course, due diligence on who you are getting in bed with is also very key. So whether it's equity finance you're looking at, or whether it's debt, or whether it's a combination of both, these are very important for you in managing your risk.
Thank you so much for providing that much needed legal perspective to this question. And to our attendees, I know at this point you must be brimming with questions. Please, if you have questions, drop them in the chat box for our panelists to attend to. And AP, I have a question for you. Looking at operations, looking at what Bamboo is doing in the capital market space, my next question is, how are your operations in Nigeria and other jurisdictions? How has Bamboo been able to navigate the regulatory hurdles, so to say, in terms of hiring, in terms of compliance, and in terms of meeting the If you still there with us? Did you get my question?
I missed your question. Can you take it again, please?
I'm happy to take it again. My question is, looking at Bamboo's operations in Nigeria and other jurisdictions, how is Bamboo able to work around with hurdles in terms of regulation and compliances in meeting its targets in each capital market it's operating?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. To be honest, we've had our own fair share of regulatory problems, as you know, and but I would say that it's been only good. It's been generally good, right? We hear a lot of people talk about how difficult it is to operate in the Nigerian space. Yes, it is difficult, right? But again, there are still a lot of good parts. There are still a lot of positives in operating in the Nigerian space, right? The Nigerian space, just like what Mr. Agama also talked about, Dr. Agama also talked about, the Nigerian space is still very fresh, and is still more like a virgin space kind of for so many products and so many asset classes that you could unload on the Nigerian people. What is required is that you do your due diligence properly, and whatever asset classes or whatever investments you are putting in front of the Nigerian people are investments that you've run through the regulators, and the regulators have basically given you the go ahead, right, to put these things out there. But again, the Nigerian ecosystem right now is actually a very, very rich place for you to carve a niche for yourself, because even though there are a lot of players, there's still room for a lot more to come in and play in this space and provide services that are kind of niche services that other players are not providing at the moment. So I would say that generally, talking about from the regulatory perspective, that there is a lot of ground for growth, and there is a lot of opening for growth and for development in this space in its entirety. But talking about this, trying to respond to this question from a technology perspective, we as a company, we play basically play in the global space. Talents these days are no longer cheap. You're basically competing with global companies for talents. You're basically trying to compete for talents with companies like Google and Microsoft. These are companies that pay a whole lot of monies. And yeah, again, you also want to have the right talent to put a solid platform out there for that would be simple and easy for your users to utilize, right? So these are not very simple things to navigate. But again, like I said, you basically need to put all of this into cognizance before you go ahead to start a company. Nothing is easy, honestly, but the opportunities in the Nigerian space, it's what gives a lot of us hope, right? Because the opportunities are enormous. You were talking about the percentage of Nigerians of monies contributed into the stock exchange, and now it contributes to the GDP of the country, right? You would see that there is a lot of growth. There's a lot of room for growth in Nigeria, and that is why we need more players. We need more asset classes, like Dr. Agama said. We need the regulators to open up more spaces. We need more young people to come into the industry and explore more options. We need the traditional players like the First Ally and the ARM and co, right, to deepen users' knowledge through education, for them to put out more asset classes and offer Nigerians more means of not just getting out of poverty, but also building wealth.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Dr. Agama, I need to watch myself. My apologies once again. Dr. Agama, I have a question for you. And my question is, how is the Nigerian Capital Market Institute putting out materials out there, educating the general public and also capital market operators on financial literacy, and bearing in mind the requirement for Nigerian specific industry? Dr. Agama?
Well, yes, I'm here.
Thank you, sir.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Okay. So for the Nigerian Capital Market Institute, it's the first and the only kind of organization in Nigeria with such mandate. Our responsibility actually cuts beyond, just enlightenment. Of course, we provide education, training, and research. So we are very much equipped to doing just that. In fact, one of our very well-taken course was conducted about 2 weeks ago, where we are speaking to fintech and the Nigerian capital market. So what it's important that people must know is that education is not cheap, because the major challenge you have around people not wanting to embrace education is probably the cost. But the question always comes again, roundabout rhetorically. They say, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. So what's important for us, and which is key to my mission here, is to continue to push along, try to make people understand that there is value. There is value in educating yourself. There is value in learning. And the reason why I accepted to be in this meeting today is because I value education. I know that by speaking in this meeting, 1 or 2 persons will learn something new, and those persons will move those things that I've learned to some other persons. And of course, you have the multiplier effect. So clearly, it's important to us. And as an institution and as a subsidiary of the SEC, it is part of our mandate to, as much as possible, try to educate people. So very soon, we've also agreed or decided to set up some free webinars, right? So that people can come and take some level of education within a short space of time. And by so doing, more persons will be educated and be more involved, in the market, while bringing the very value that we pursue into the market for the future and the future generations.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Agama, for that wonderful response. And it's really interesting to see how the NCMI, it's really doing that and matching innovation for knowledge and information. So we are going to gradually start winding down, and I'm going to direct this question to all the panelists, that is Dr. Gama, Adetola, and AB. My question for our start with Adetola is this: what are your thoughts and projections on the future of Nigerian capital market? Bearing in mind all discussed today, bearing in mind that technology is going to change the game, and also bearing in mind what AB said, that those that are going to change the game are still in their teenage, and they will change it not just how they met it, but how they want it to be for them. What are your thoughts on this?
All right, thank you, AB. Oh, thank you, Anthony. So with respect to my thoughts on the future of the Nigerian capital market, I think the first point for me is that we should expect greater youth participation in the markets. We are beginning to see it, but we should expect more. And like AB said, the teens, our brothers and sisters, we should just watch out for that space. Another thing to look out for will be collaboration. We should look out for collaboration between local capital market operators and, of course, those that are global or outside the country. So there will be collaboration to, again, see how this can get, how the opportunities, how the investment opportunities we have in the capital market space can get to users and investors across board, both rural and, of course, urban center. I think in the urban center, again, I don't have the statistics. We are doing well, but we need to go a bit more and get people more financially included into that space. So we should look out for that. Another third point we should look out for is that our regulators, and I think the SEC is taking the lead on that, is that they will play a very important role in market development and expansion. So there will be a lot of engagement with stakeholders, again, how to see how regulation can assist innovation, as Dr. Agama has put it. So we should look out for that. And again, with the emergence of these virtual assets and conversation that is ongoing, you should expect innovative regulation. It will not be static. This is not the road that we've applied before. So there will be changes along the line as we move, but this again will be driven by that younger generation that is coming on board. And one last point for me will be this collaboration. We'll start seeing collaboration, for example, between corporate investment advisors, license holders, and of course, fully established fund managers. And this will, of course, be because of the financial requirement deficit that probably corporate investment advisors cannot provide. So there will be collaborations around that space as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gama. Before you give your input on this, there is a question. There is a question for you, and that is: are the courses at the institute affordable? You can answer this alongside your thoughts on the future of Nigerian capital markets.
I think he dropped off, Anthony.
Oh, Dr. Gama dropped off. All right. AB, over to you. What are your thoughts and projections on the future of the Nigerian capital market?
Yeah, I think I've spoken a bit about it, right? But just to buttress one more time, what Adetola also said, right? I kind of feel like the future looks like there would also be like a lot of youth participation, just like Adetola said. We expect that the young ones coming in now, they would be more involved. They will be more involved in the financial space, more than older generations, right? And because of the level of information that they would be exposed to coming into the space, right? The feeling is that they would grow in this space and they would try to shape things. They will try to change things to shape it to what they want it to look like, right? So we expect a lot of youth participation, and of course, the youth participation will bring its own energy on board, and right, and you get to see certain things to begin to change in that space. I also expect a lot of massive tech investments and developments. I know I did say that something that is quite key to me is how financial literacy, and I think that is where there is some kind of gap. I think there is a gap in how financial literacy is taught currently, and how people are able to access information on how people are able to access information on finance. I don't know what the readership is like now for financial papers. I don't know what the viewership is for financial focused television stations like CNBC and co. I know there was a time back when, if you walk into banks, it's the stations are mostly on CNBC and stuff like that. And I don't know what it is now. I think it's mostly on channels now, and channels talks about politics, right? So yeah, but I think we need to go back to financial literacy. I think that financial literacy will be a big part in how the space develops and how it grows. And I also think that there will be things will get a lot more globalized, because you would have platforms like ours that offer global assets and also offer local assets and stuff, right? So I think even local asset classes would become very, very globalized. The world has become a global village. People in UK and Canada today can access the Nigerian stock market, right, from just their phone. They do not need to come down to Nigeria to access it. They do not need to call a broker or whoever to access it. They can access it 100% from their mobile phone. I think that we have not begun to reap the benefit of what these changes looks like, and over a period of time we will begin to reap the benefits and see what these changes would really amount to.
Thank you so much, AB, for that. So before we take final remarks from our panelists, we'll be inviting the audience. If you have any question, you just raise your hand or you could type it. I'm aware someone addressed the question to Mr. Agama and he's not here to answer it. So if you could also leave us your email address, that would be very helpful in forwarding the question to him to give you, then we can give you a direct response. So our panelists are attendees without whom would not be gathered here today. If you've got questions, please push it out. You can raise your hand, or you could just type it out. We've got a few minutes to do that. Okay. Before I call on Deji from Tech Hive to give us a vote of thanks, I call on the panelists to give us their final remarks on this session. I'd like AB to go first, so I'll go with the voice of Adetola. AB, I've had enough about you today, and it's interesting to see what you're doing. So please, let's hear from you. Move to my senior colleague. You see what I did there.
Right. So I would like to end on the note of more or less asking for, again, we are trying to talk about the topic of regulating the use of technology in investment, right? So I would like to end on the note of requesting for greater collaboration between the players, all the players in the space, and also the regulators. I would also like to use the opportunity to say to anybody listening right now that kind of feel like the space is already filled up and is jam-packed and there is no space for new players. I would like to say that it is not true. There is need for new players. There is space for growth. There is space for more people to come on board in whatever capacity, either as a fintech player or in any of the shape or forms you want to really come into the space. There are so many opportunities that could be explored, and I would like to encourage anybody out there to really come into the space, right? And let's come together to make this whole ecosystem stronger. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Before we take Adetola, Dr. Agama just joined us. And Dr. Agama, we are signing off gradually. So a question was posed to you, Dr. Agama, to find out whether the courses at the institute, whether they are affordable.
Yes, they are affordable. When you say affordable, affordability is a relative term. In the old parlance, it is a better soup than money killer, right? So if you say you want Dr. Agama to come and teach you, it is not like buying a car. You have to be able to pay for it. So if you want good thing, you have to pay for it. So people must stop thinking about things, in the penury language of what is affordability. The truth about it is that most people spend so much money doing frivolities and less money educating themselves. So the courses are affordable and they are useful. Affordability, usefulness, and timely. So that's for that reason, I guess that people should just, take up the opportunity. If I'm bringing a facilitator from the US, my colleagues in the US, should I be paying the person 50,000 naira? Even you will not, So when you see those courses that they're priced at 15,000 naira, mind you, what you get is 15,000 naira output. So be careful.
Thank you, Dr. Agama. And finally, we would like to take your final remarks on the future of Nigerian capital market and also operating in the Nigerian capital market.
My thought on what?
Your thoughts on the future of the Nigerian capital market.
The future of Nigerian capital market is bullish, right? There's hope. Like when you were trying to, analyze the GDP and the capital market of various jurisdictions, and of course, you were looking at it from the negative side. Wow, it's allowable, but that is the opportunity. If our GDP to the capital market is 5%, it means that you have 95% opportunity. You can't get it any better. And if you key into that opportunity, there is a slice for everyone. So clearly, the future is bullish. There are opportunities, and it is time for the youth, who are now the majority in the Nigerian population, to move to where they belong, rather than sitting at the bench, waiting for manners to fall from heaven. Manners don't fall anymore. Manners are for angels. We are not angels. Let's go into the market and do what we need to do.
Thank you, Dr. Agama. Over to you, Adetola.
All right, thank you very much. Final thought for me, from an operator perspective, would be to encourage my colleagues to engage and collaborate. Community is, of course, a great way for you to keep a pulse on what is happening in your industry. So just to encourage everyone not to isolate and say, oh, okay, I'm just going to stay here, I'm doing this on my own. Engage with operator and, of course, engage with regulator. There's open door policy with the SEC and, of course, the NCMI, led by our own Dr. Agama. So you should engage, you should collaborate. We are open, and as we said, we are looking forward to these opportunities, especially that will be driven by the younger generation. So as we engage and as we collaborate, I believe we have good stories to tell as it relates to our businesses. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Deji, over to you for votes of thanks.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Anthony. I'd like to thank our panelists, Dr. Agama, Tola, Ebi, and our moderator, Anthony, as well. I think it's been a very insightful session with very deep intellectual conversations about technology and investments and the capital market, Nigerian capital market. At Tech Hive and Hamu Legal, we hope to continue to have this sort of engagement and conversations to continue to drive thought leadership and ensure that we continue to provide these opportunities, these forums, right, wherein regulators, operators, practitioners can come together and voice opinions that can lead to the betterment of whatever industry that we are discussing. I'd like to thank the audience as well for showing up and every member of the Tech Hive and Hammer Legal team. And once again, thank our panelists for making our time to share their wisdom and thought with us as well. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I'll see you at our next fireside chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much to everyone, Dr. Gama, Adetola, and every the Tech Hive team, my team at Hammer Legal, Oluwatobi, the Amiable Fali, and to you all attendees. Thank you for taking out your schedule to be here with us. We are right on time, 12:30, and with that, we declare this session over. Do have a lovely day to yourselves.